Gulliver of Mars by Edwin L. Arnold Chapter 7 This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This recording by James Christopher. Gulliver of Mars by Edwin L. Arnold Chapter 7 It was only at moments like these I had any time to reflect on my circumstances or that giddy chance which had shot me into space in this fashion. And, frankly, the opportunities, when they did come, brought such an extraordinary depressing train of thought, I by no means invited them. Even with the time available the occasion was always awry for such reflection. These dainty triflers made sulking as impossible amongst them as philosophy in a ballroom. When I stalked out like that from the library, in fine mood to moralise and apostrophise heaven in a way that would no doubt have looked fine upon these pages, one sprightly damsel, just as the gloomy rhetoric was bursting from my lips, thrust a flower under my nose whose scent brought on a violent attack of sneezing, her companions joining hands and dancing round me while they imitated my agony. Then, when I burst away from them and rushed down a narrow arcade of crumbling mansions, another stopped me in mid-career, and, taking the honey stick she was sucking from her lips, put it to mine, like a pretty, playful child. Another asked me to dance, another to drink pink oblivion with her, and so on. How could one lament among all this irritating cheerfulness? An might have helped me, for poor An was intelligent for a Martian, but she had disappeared, and the terrible vacuity of life in the planet was forced upon me when I realized that possessing no cognomen, no fixed address, or rating, it would be the merest chance if I ever came across her again. Looking for my friendly guide and getting more and more at sea amongst a maze of comely but similar faces, I made chance acquaintance with another of her kind who cheerfully drank my health at the government's expense, and chatted on things Martian. She took me to see a funeral by way of amusement, and I found these people floated their dead off on flower-decked rafts instead of burying them, the send-offs all taking place upon a certain swift-flowing stream, which carried the dead away into the vast region of northern ice, but more exactly whither my informant seemed to have no idea. The voyager on this occasion was old, and this brought to my mind the curious fact that I had observed few children in the city, and no elders, all except perhaps Hath being in a state of sleek youthfulness. My new friend explained the peculiarity by declaring Martians ripen with extraordinary rapidity from infancy to the equivalent of about 25 years of age with us, and then remained at that period however long they might live. Only when they died did their accumulated seasons come upon them. The girl turning pale, and wringing her pretty hands in sympathetic concern when I told her there was a land where decrepitude was not so happily postponed. The Martians, she said, arranged their calendar by the varying colours of the seasons, and loved blue as an antidote to the generally red and rusty character of their soil. Discussing such things as these, we lightly squandered the day away, and I know nothing more to note until the evening was come again, that wonderful purple evening which creeps over the outer worlds at sunset. A seductive darkness gemmed with 10,000 stars riding so low in the heaven they seemed scarcely more than mast high. When that hour was come my friend tiptoed again to my cheek, and then, pointing to the palace and laughingly hoping fate would send me a bride, as soft as catkin and as sweet as honey, slipped away into the darkness. Then I remembered all on a sudden this was the connubial evening of my sprightly friends, the occasion when, as An had told me, the government constituted itself into a gigantic matrimonial agency, and with the cheerful carelessness of the place shuffled the matrimonial pack anew, and dealt a fresh hand to all the players. Now I had no wish to avail myself of the sailor's privilege of a bride in every port, but surely this game would be interesting enough to see, even if I were but a disinterested spectator. As a matter of fact I was something more than that, and had been thinking a good deal of Heru during the day. I do not know whether I actually aspired to her hand, that were a large order, even if there had been no suspicion in my mind she was already bespoke in some vague way by the invisible Hath, most abortive of princes. But she was undeniably a lovely girl. The more one thought of her, the more she grew upon the fancy, and then the preference she had shown myself was very gratifying. Yes, I would certainly see this quaint ceremonial, even if I took no leading part in it. The great centre hall of the palace was full of a radiant light, bringing up its ruined columns and intruding creepers to the best effect when I entered. Dinner also was just being served, as they would say in another, and alas, very distant place, and the whole building thronged with folk. Down the centre, low tables with room for 400 people were ranged, but they looked quaint enough since but 200 were sitting there, all brand new bachelors about to be turned into brand new Benedicts. and taking it mighty calmly it seemed. Across the hall top was a raised table similarly arranged and ornamented, and entering into the spirit of the thing, and little guessing how stern a reality was to come from the evening, I sat down in a vacant place near to the dais, and only a few paces from where the pale, ghost-eyed Hath was already seated. Almost immediately afterwards music began to buzz all about the hall, music of the kind the people love, which always seemed to me as though it were exuding from the tables and benches, so disembodied and difficult was it to locate. All the sleepy gallants raised their flower-encircled heads at the same time, seizing their wine-cups, already filled to the brim, and the door at the bottom of the hall opening. The ladies, preceded by one carrying a mysterious vase covered with a glittering cloth, came in. Now, being somewhat thirsty, I had already drunk half the wine in my beaker, and whether it was that draught, drugged as all Martian wines are, or the sheer loveliness of the maids themselves, I cannot say. But as the procession entered, and, dividing, circled round under the colonnades of the hall, a sensation of extraordinary felicity came over me. An emotion of divine contentment purged of all grossness, and I stared and stared at the circling loveliness, gossamer clad, flower girdled, tripping by me with vapid delight. Either the wine was budding in my head, or there was little to choose from amongst them, for had any of those ladies sat down at the vacant place beside me, I should certainly have accepted her as a gift from heaven, without question or cavil. But one after another they slipped by, modestly taking their places in the shadows until at last came Princess Heru, and at the sight of her my soul was stirred. She came undulating over the white marble, the loveliness of her fairy person dim but scarcely hidden by a robe of softest lawn, in colour like rose petals, her eyes aglitter with excitement and a charming blush upon her face. She came straight up to me, and resting a dainty hand upon my shoulder, whispered, "Are you come as a spectator only, dear Mr. Jones, or do you join in our custom tonight?" "I came only as a bystander, lady, but the fascination of the opportunity is deadly." "And have you any preferences?" This in the softest little voice from somewhere in the nape of my neck. "Strangers sometimes say there are fair women in Seth." "None till you came, and now, as was said a long time ago, all is dross that is not Helen." "Dearest lady," I ran on, detaining her by the fingertips and gazing up into those shy and star-like eyes, "must I indeed put all the hopes your kindness has roused in me these last few days to shuffle in yonder urn, taking my chances with all these lazy fellows? In that land whereof I was, we would not have had it so. We loaded our dice in these matters. A strong man there might have a willing maid though all heaven were set against him. But give me leave, sweet lady, and I will ruffle with these fellows. Give me a glance, and I will barter my life for your billet when it is drawn. But to stand idly by and see you won by a cold chance, I cannot do it." That lady laughed a little and said, "Men make laws, dear Jones, for women to keep. It is the rule, and we must not break it." Then, gently tugging at her imprisoned fingers and gathering up her skirts to go, she added, "But it might happen that wit here were better than sword." Then she hesitated, and freeing herself at last slipped from my side. Yet before she was quite gone half turned again and whispered so low that no one but I could hear it, "A golden pool, and a silver fish, and a line no thicker than a hair," and before I could beg a meaning of her, had passed down the hall and taken a place with the other expectant damsels. "A golden pool," I said to myself, "a silver fish, and a line of hair." What could she mean? Yet that she meant something, and something clearly of importance, I could not doubt. A golden pool and a silver fish. I buried my chin in my chest and thought deeply, but without effect while the preparations were made and the fateful urn, each maid having slipped her name tablet within, was brought down to us, covered in a beautiful web of rose-coloured tissue, and commenced its round, passing slowly from hand to hand as each of those handsome, impassive, fawn-eyed gallants lifted a corner of the web in turn, and helped themselves to fate. "A golden pool," I muttered, "and a silver fish." So absorbed in my own thoughts I hardly noticed the great cup begin its journey, but when it had gone 3 or 4 places the glitter of the lights upon it caught my eye. It was of pure gold, round brimmed, and circled about with a string of the blue convolvulus which implies delight to these people. Ay, and each man was plunging his hand into the dark, and taking in his turn a small notched-edged mother-of-pearl billet from it, that flashed soft and silvery as he turned in his hand to read the name engraved in unknown characters thereon. "Why," I said with a start, "surely this might be the golden pool, and these the little silver fish."